Hello, my friends. It's Nick, the ASMR nerd, and welcome to another episode of Relaxing Reviews. Today, I've got a mechanical keyboard up on deck, and it's actually been a little while since I've done one of these, so I'm excited to get back to it. Today, we're looking at a product called the Launch. The Launch mechanical keyboard from a company called System76, and it's fairly aptly named, I think, because as far as I know, it is their first foray into mechanical keyboards. Now, that being said, System76 does manufacture other things like laptops and desktops. They are a fairly small company. I believe they're based out of Colorado, and it seems they have this kind of open source ethos where the products are very much about being open and configurable and efficient and these sorts of things. Honestly, they seem pretty nerdy, and I'm kind of here for it. Anyway, this is their first attempt at bringing those kinds of philosophies and that sort of design ethos to a mechanical keyboard. The Launch is advertised as being highly customizable, as being highly efficient, and as being highly ergonomic and comfortable. So I'm going to find out today, we are going to find out together whether it nails all of those advertised goals. But no matter how comfortable this keyboard is, I bet you it's not as comfortable as this t-shirt from this video's sponsor, Into the AM. Into the AM, as you may know, are manufacturers and purveyors of high quality, everyday apparel. Elevated, one might call it. They make t-shirts like this one that I'm wearing right here with all kinds of rad, exclusively licensed graphic designs. A lot of them have these kind of spacey themes like the one that you can see me sporting right here. Lots of fun colors usually, but they got all kinds of other stuff as well, sort of naturalistic designs, or sometimes some more kind of geometric stuff or sort of psychedelic stuff. Lots of really interesting designs that you're not going to find anywhere else because they are all exclusively licensed. They are also, as I mentioned, super comfortable. I wear these t-shirts almost every day now. After trying out a few of them when Into the AM first sent them over, I have to admit I am a convert. They are so comfy. They're made of a nice soft cotton blend material, a little bit stretchy, very, very comfortable even after multiple washes. Also very easy to care for. You can just throw it in the washing machine on a normal cycle. They don't fade, they don't flake or anything like that. They're honestly excellent tees. And if you're interested in checking them out, maybe picking up a few of their new designs, they're coming out with new ones every month. You can check them out at the link down in the video description, and you can save 10% off your purchase using that link. Also, a portion of your purchase comes back to support me and the channel here, which of course I appreciate a lot, and a big thank you to those of you who have done that in the past. I really appreciate it, and I also appreciate hearing from you that you're enjoying the t-shirts and products that you've purchased. Also, Into the AM doesn't just have t-shirts. Up here the weather's getting a little colder. It's that time of year. So I'm going to be checking out next time a hoodie from them. They have some rad looking hoodies, some really cool designs on those. So you can check those out as well down in that video description, a link and pinned at the top of the comments. So once again, big thank you to Into the AM for sponsoring today's video. And if you're looking for some sweet deals on some awesome tees, head on down to that link. You can get 3 of them for $60 and save 10% using that link down below. You will not, however, get 3 launch keyboards for $60. That would be a little bit much to expect. The launch keyboard from System76 is not a cheap keyboard. It retails for $285 US direct from System76. So that sets it up in a pretty lofty echelon of keyboards. There's some pretty stiff competition at that price point. So can System76 bring it with their debut launch keyboard? Can it be the sort of open source based, highly efficient, highly configurable, highly ergonomic keyboard that they're aiming for it to be? That's what we're going to find out here today. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at System76's launch keyboard. And here we have the System76 Launch in-box. It's a pretty unique looking design. I like this sort of like orbits. I guess that's the whole launch theme, right? These are like orbitals, things getting, I don't know, accelerated around planets and things like that. It's kind of whimsical looking, but also aligns with the project identity, I guess, that they're trying to go for here. Anyway, launch configurable keyboard, it says, by System76. And because System76 sells direct from their website and does not have a retail presence that I'm aware of in brick and mortar, at least, that's it in terms of information on the box. There's actually nothing else on this box, nothing on the ends. Oh, this right here, this might be to indicate the switch type. I think that's probably likely. This is kind of a jade green, and this board comes with Kailh box THICC Jade switches. So I think that's what that is there. But of course it fits the aesthetic. Yeah, there's really nothing. This looks like maybe there could be a sticker put on here. If they did want to have some more information on there about the product, but nothing on my version anyway. It's also possible that this is just a reviewer version. I'm not quite sure. It was labeled in shipping as an engineering sample, so anyway, but it's an appealing looking box. It feels, relatively durable. All right, let's see what we've got inside. Inside the lid, we've got some foam padding there. And we are greeted with a continuation of the motif from the outside. It says here, ready for launch. A kind of silvery printing. This is a nice thick piece of card. And on the back, we've got some information. Let's see what it says. Welcome to the launch keyboard crew. We're happy to have you on board. Because it's a keyboard anyway. As you leave the ground, download the configurator there. So that's a QMK based open source keyboard configurator. Pop OS users can download this application directly from the Pop shop. Pop OS is System76's proprietary, I guess, OS. It's probably open source because that seems to be their thing. So I don't know if that really makes it proprietary, whatever their custom OS, I guess you'd say, as I understand it. configurator allows you to adjust your flight path to your liking at any point along your journey. They're really committed to this whole rocket ship takeoff thing, aren't they? This motif. Inside, you'll see the default layout for the second keyboard layer shown below. So, I believe this keyboard has 4 potential layers. I could be wrong about that, but I believe so. Here you can remap key bindings and set up additional layers. A keycap puller is provided to match your keys to their functions. Use up to 4 layers for typing. There you go. Personalize shortcuts, executing scripts, or using alternative layouts like Dvorak. So, you know, they're really pushing the whole customization aspect of this keyboard. That's a big part of their sales pitch. And those 4 different function layers are all saved to the onboard firmware. So, you know, once configured, you can take the keyboard with you anywhere, plug it into anything, and your whole configuration will be right there for you. The, you know, host computer doesn't have to be running the software. Aim high, experiment, find new ways to make yourself more efficient. Make a difference at warp speeds. And most importantly, have fun. Thank you for flying. Sincerely, the System76 team. So there we are. That appears to be all the literature inside here. Unless there's some hiding underneath, I suppose. So we've got some foam padding here. I should point out, I have opened this up previously, and I have used the keyboard previously. In fact, I opened it up on a Twitch stream quite some time ago, just for something interesting to do. And if you've never been out to our Twitch streams, come check it out, twitch.tv/theASMRnerd. There's a link right down there, down below the video. That'll take you there. I stream every Thursday and Sunday night, starting around 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. So you are welcome to join me and our wonderful community over there for all kinds of ASMR-ish good times. Anyway, so I did open this up on a stream, and I have used it, so this is not a totally fresh unboxing. I try to keep these review unboxings fresh for you guys, but every once in a while I have some reason to open the product beforehand. So here is the keyboard, and it's looking pretty nice. It's a pretty muted kind of color scheme, but I think it's nice. It sets it apart. We have this kind of exploded 75% layout here, which is a fairly popular layout these days, I think. But there are some oddities that you may notice. We'll get to that in a second, but let's pull the board itself. Oh, you can hear those heckin' clicky switches. We're definitely going to hear more of those shortly. But yes, we'll look at that in a minute. Let's take a look at what else is in here. We have this foam cradle for the keyboard. Looks nice, feels nice. It is well protected in there, to be sure. And then underneath, we've got some additional stuff here. We've got some accessories and things. We have, of course, a USB cable. This is the standard USB Type A to USB Type C. You will notice this is a USB 3 cable because this keyboard actually has a built-in USB hub with not one, not two, not even three, but 4 USB ports, which is pretty unique, actually. Don't know if I've ever seen a keyboard with 4 built-in USB ports before. And they all operate at USB 3.2 Gen 2 speeds, which, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's up to 10 gigabits per second. Could be wrong. I think that's right. USB 3.2 naming conventions are a mess, honestly. They're bad. But at any rate, we have a nice braided cable here. No cable wrap, and no specific System76 branding on here. But there it is, nonetheless. And just because I guess they felt like it, there's also a USB Type-C to Type-C cable included as well, which, sure, why not? Yeah, actually, you can see right here, Super Speed 10, SS10. So, yeah, I think I was right about the 10 gigabits per second situation. Doesn't specify on here. We've also got a keycap puller and, oh, interesting, a switch puller. I wonder if this thing does in fact have hot swap sockets. You know, I didn't see it as an advertised feature, but maybe it does. We'll have to check that out. Anyway, it is the nice style of keycap puller, the wire style, so that's good. And switch puller on that end. And we've got a aluminum riser bar, which I believe is magnetic and goes on the bottom to tip it up a little bit, just provide an incline, non-slip feet on the bottom, of course. And then we have an assortment of keycaps. Just pull them out here. So one of the things you might have noticed is that the keycaps look a little strange on here. There's a reason for that. For instance, the left side of the board, the caps don't quite line up, and now that might drive some people nuts if you're the kind of person that needs things to line up. But there's a good reason, in theory, and that is that all the caps on this board are one of 3 sizes. Either this 1U size, this 1.5U size, or a 2U size. And that is, in theory, allows you to swap your keycaps around more freely. At least that's what System76 claims, or, you know, that's their selling point here. So let's say, for example, that you wanted to replace one of the 2 space keys, these 2U space keys here, with one of these other 2U keycaps here, shift backspace function. You could do that. That's the benefit of the split space bar layout and of this 3 keycap configuration. We have different escape keys here as well, which I'm not actually sure really where they're supposed to go. I guess you could replace delete with them, or tab, any of these 1.5U keys, really. Right shift if you wanted. And they come in a few different accent colors, which is kind of nice. Then we also have a bunch of arrow keys in accent blue and red, and 1U escape keys in accent colors as well. So this is an interesting thing. And maybe I'll save the discussion for that, or about that, for a little bit later as we look at the keyboard itself some more. But it's an interesting thing what they've done here. I've never seen a board that does that before. But But let's take a closer look at the keycaps themselves, because this is a good opportunity to do so. These keycaps are an interesting profile. These are XDA profile keycaps, which is a uniform profile, which means they're all the same height. There's no stepping, or sculpting as they go up the keyboard. They're all the same height. They are a spherical profile. So you can see in profile, they have kind of curved edges here. The tops have slight divots to them, slightly concave. And they sit a little bit higher than DSA, which is another uniform spherical profile that you might be familiar with. DSA is also not super common, but they're a lot shorter than, for instance, SA or MT3, which are some very tall, high-profile spherical keycaps. So anyway, it's an interesting profile. I think it does help set the keycaps apart a little bit on this board. Keycap profiles are really fairly subjective, what you like. Most people are used to standard OEM profile or maybe cherry on some boards, but you get used to this type of profile pretty quickly. And I think they look nice. I think they're aesthetically pleasing. Oh, I should point out they're made of PBT, which is a nice high quality plastic that has a nice kind of a matte feel to it, especially when they're textured like this, kind of softly textured. And PBT resists finger oil shine, so they tend to look nice. They don't get all fingerprinty and shined up looking over a long period of time. And the legends are dye sub, so the dye is fused right into the plastic. There's no printing on the surface. It's literally in the plastic. So they're never going to wear out. And they look good. I would say that the legends look pretty sharp. So the keycaps are of quite high profile, or low profile, high quality is what I should say. Nice and thick, good materials, quality manufacturing, and a fun profile to boot. So let's put this aside and get to the keyboard proper. It's really hard to handle this thing without making noise. Okay, so here we have the System76 Launch. It is as I said earlier, exploded 75% profile, which means it removes the numpad, of course. It gets rid of some of the nav cluster and retains some and kind of squashes it onto the right side here. We have dedicated arrow keys, which is nice, and it does retain the function row, the F keys up here, so that's great. But the nav cluster keys and the arrow keys are separated away from the main body of the alphanumeric keys just slightly, which ostensibly is for aesthetics, but also to help with just hand placement, finger placement. It's easier to find them without looking when they're just separated out a little bit. The case for this keyboard is made from one machined block of aluminum, and it shows. It feels quite solid, and it's got these kind of rounded off corners and edges. It's got a bit of a forehead up here, but not too much. And then it comes in quite tight on each other side here. Really nothing going on around the edges, except for the top edge. And here we get to see all those USB ports I was telling you about. So the center one here is the one you plug in to actually connect the keyboard to your PC. But these two USB Type-C ports are for the USB hub, as are these two Type-A ports on each side. That's a heck of a lot of USB connectivity, and it's a welcome addition. I wish more keyboards would do that, actually. Don't know why they don't. If anything, you might get one USB port on most, on some keyboards. But even then, that's uncommon. Heckin' clicky boys here. On the back, we've got just this nice solid piece of aluminum here. We've got 4 non-slip feet. And we have the space for our riser bar. Let's see how that attaches. I think it's just like this. Oh, that was kind of loud. It is indeed magnetic. Whoa, that was really loud. Yikes. Okay, so there you go. That's very solid. And that just, props it up at a little bit of an angle. Because otherwise, it's totally flat. But this brings it up to, a degree or two of incline. We do have a little label here. It says 2PC, just in case you weren't sure which USB port was the one to plug in. And then a little bit of information about the board here. System76 Launch. Designed and manufactured in Colorado with domestic and foreign parts. Yes, this is a demo unit. It says right on here. Demo, not for sale. So this might be a slightly different experience than the retail product. I'm not sure. Interesting. Okay. And that's pretty much it. We have a handful of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Phillips head screws here, which presumably would let us access the innards. Oh my gosh, this riser bar is actually slightly difficult to remove there. The magnets are quite strong. And it's worth noting that this keyboard is open source, by which I mean not just the software, but actually the PCB design files, the case design files, everything is made available by System76. If you want to check it out yourself, make some modifications, maybe print your own version of the PCB with some changes. All of that is available to you, evidently. And I do like that ethos. I think that's pretty cool. So, let's talk a little bit about the keycaps again for a moment. I think I appreciate what System76 is trying to do here by making the keycaps all one of 3 sizes. It does mean that you can, for example, swap out the included keycaps quite freely to non-standard places on the board, and that's fun. That is a nice configuration benefit. However, what it also means is you're probably never going to get a third-party keycap set onto this board. So if you don't like the stock keycaps, you're probably kind of out of luck. You could buy just singleton keycaps in the right sizes, but they're not necessarily going to be labeled. And if you have a particular aesthetic that you're going for with a set from whatever, GMK or something, you're going to have a really hard time filling out this board, I think, just because of these non-standard cap sizes. So that's important to remember. Now, if you are, happy to use the included keycaps and just use it that way, then that's great. But it does limit your third-party keycap options because of the non-standard layout. Now, something we ought to check here is the hot swap situation. And the switches. I'll show you the switches here, because the switches are actually kind of uncommon. I mentioned it earlier, but this keyboard is packing Kailh box thick click Jade switches. We've got this kind of jade color stem here, and these make use of Kailh's click bar, which I am a big fan of. You might have seen some of my videos in past featuring keyboard builds with Kailh box whites or Kailh box heavy pale blues. These are all clicky switches that use that click bar. In the THICCS series, of which these Jades are a part, they use an even thicker click bar for maximum tactility. And it is very, very clicky. It is also very, very loud. It's a big snap, and it takes quite a bit of force to actually overcome that clicky point. Which gives these switches a fairly heavy feel to them, even though the spring itself, once you get past that click, the spring itself is actually not that heavy. I believe it's the same as a Kailh box white, which is, I think, 55 grams, perhaps. But that thick click bar, satisfying as it is, does make for a pretty heavy and loud switch. Now, you can also order this keyboard from System76 with Kailh box Royals, which are a heavily tactile switch. I've actually never used box Royals. I'm kind of a little bit sad that this demo unit didn't come with the box Royals, because I'm a big fan of tactiles and I kind of wanted to check them out. But instead we've got the clickies, which are very satisfying. But those are the only two switch types that you can get from System76. Only one clicky option, and it's very clicky, and one tactile option, which is very, very tactile. That's my understanding anyway. However, I do believe we might have a hot swap board on our hands. I don't remember that being a selling point advertised on the website for this board, but this keycap puller leads me to believe it must be so. So let's just see here. Let us see. And indeed, it is. So, here's our thick click Jade. Transparent upper, opaque white lower. Very nice. And there's our socket. You can see underneath we have a black PCB, it looks like. We have surface mount LED. Of course, we do have individually configurable per key RGB backlighting. And it does look as though this PCB supports 5-pin switches, which is nice. Those two holes on either side of the central peg there improve compatibility with plate mount switches, or pardon me, PCB mount switches. So that's great. I'm not going to disassemble this keyboard. I rarely do in my reviews anyway. But also, this is being a engineering unit that they want back. I'm not going to pull it apart on them. But I'm sure that the innards are up to snuff. The quality of the whole construction honestly feels excellent. The machining around the holes here, the sockets, is nice. They're not like sharp edges. There's no burrs on them or anything. Feels nicely finished. So that's great. I'm glad we've got hot swap sockets, because maybe you don't want thick clicks, or maybe you don't want box royals, maybe you want something linear. You can do that, but you just can't buy it direct from System76. I do find it a little strange that they don't have any linear option direct from them. I don't think that went in right. Let's see. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get switches to. There we go. Go back in to whence they came. And yeah, these keycaps really nice and thick. Really nice and thick. Very good. Okay, so one thing remains. Let's give it a little flex test here. It's not going to flex, I can tell you right now. This is actually maybe the stiffest board I've ever encountered. Being machined from a block of aluminum will do that. And it's relatively thick aluminum at that. So great stability, great rigidity, no flex there. You can hear it sounds solid, right? There's really no hollowness in there. I don't know if there's a dampening foam in there, but it does feel just very solid, very stable. Okay, so I reckon we've given it the 360. We've taken a look at the board and the accessories, talked about the features. It's time to plug it in, see what the RGB is like, see what the software is like, and then of course take it for a very, very clicky typing test. And here is the launch, plugged in and looking very RGB indeed. This is one of a variety of the patterns that it can display. And I'm just looking at this card that we got here. It says LED on off is function 0, it looks like. LED darken, function minus, LED brighten, function plus. But I've got some media keys over here. We've got play, pause, volume up, volume down, and mute underneath our nav cluster keys here on the secondary function layer. We also got repeats of page up, page down, home, and end over here under our secondary function layer on the arrow keys, and also up here, which is kind of interesting as well, from Y through O, it looks like. And it has another set of arrow keys on the secondary function layer underneath those. Again, these are just default configs, but you can change any of this however you like. The reset option here is for when you're flashing the firmware. So, and then print screen is underneath the tab button there on the secondary function layer. Interestingly, it looks like there's no way to cycle through lighting effects in hardware. It looks like that has to be done in the software. I think all we can do, at least by the default configuration, is turn the RGB off, on, make it dimmer till you can't see it, make it brighter. And that is the maximum brightness. At maximum brightness, it is in fact pretty bright. I have a dim light on up there just so you can still see the board while I'm showing you the light here, but it's pretty bright and also quite nicely saturated. I always find that's the mark of quality LEDs, where you really see the vividness jump out at you, especially in a lot of the like red tones. Sometimes lower quality LEDs don't seem to do red tones very vividly. And the gradients look nice and smooth. So I would say the LEDs on this board appear to be maybe a cut above that you get on more budget-oriented offerings. And I don't see any flicker on the camera here either. Now, maybe you see a little bit. It's hard to tell on the viewfinder, but I don't see any. And if you do see any, it's just an artifact of the frequency of the LEDs and the shutter speed of the camera, but in person, there's none visible whatsoever. So, and I was also noticing, you may have noticed too, when you hold down function, the keys which have secondary functions are illuminated, which is kind of a nice way to do that. So that's cool. And that's really all there is to say about the board as is. If we want to do anything else, we're going to have to go look at the configuration software. So why don't we do that right now? And here we have the System76 keyboard configurator. You can see it's a very clean looking, simple affair. The aesthetic kind of mimics that of the keyboard itself, right down to the colors of the keycaps. If we press buttons on the keyboard, you can see the corresponding key illuminates here in the software, which is nice. What else do we have here? A little menu: import layout, export layout, reset layout, keyboard shortcuts, and an about page here. Version 1.0. This program comes with no warranty. It is, as I mentioned earlier, based off the QMK open source keyboard firmware. How interesting. We have a couple of shortcuts that tie into the configurator here. But that appears to be it. So if we want to do anything with this beyond just, have the keys light up like that, we have to click Configure Keyboard. And once again, nice and clean. We have our layers across the top here, all 4 of them. And we have key map and LEDs. Let's go look at LEDs first, actually, since we couldn't look at any of that with hardware controls. We have, I don't know, about 15 or so, maybe, different options, maybe 14, something like that. Per layer solid color, per key solid color, bound keys only, which is what we saw when we pressed the function key earlier, right? Where only bound keys show up on that layer. Cosmic background. So this is kind of just flipping through a bunch of colors. Horizontal scan, that's just your standard horizontal wave type situation. Vertical scan, exactly what you expect it to be. Interestingly, no direction configuration here, it looks like, which is too bad. We have an overall brightness control in software, a layer saturation control. How fascinating. You can do a more desaturated kind of look if you want. I've never seen that before. It's actually really cool. And then an animation speed control. If you want to slow it way the heck down. So slow. Gosh, is it doing anything? There we go. I think actually slowing it right down stops it. And if you want to go real fast, you want a Sonic, you can. But let's dial it back to something a little more chill. I like that. Event horizon. Okay, so this is coming from the outside into the middle. Binary galaxies. Oh, that's cool. I've never seen one quite like that before. It's got like 2 kind of nexus points that the light comes into. Space-time. This is another kind of horizontal wave. Pinwheel galaxy. I think that's what I might have had it on before. Oh no, I had it on Spiral Galaxy. I think that's my favorite. Elements, just kind of blinking. Splashdown, which I presume is probably a reactive mode. Yep. Classic reactive mode. And Meteor Shower, which maybe similarly. Yeah, it's kind of just a more intense version of that. So we have a mix here. Things that are kind of things we've seen before on other keyboards, but also some things that I've never seen before. I've never seen a binary Galaxies type one before. Also, I do appreciate their commitment to the bit. You know, all of these are named after space stuff for the launch keyboard. So, but if we want to configure the lighting on individual keys, looks like we can do that. Let's set it to per key solid, and let's select, oh, I don't know, C, and let's set the color to, I don't know, something down here. Let's do that. It's nice and vivid. Save, and there it is. So you can do that on a per key basis. Can we select multiple keys? No. Oh yes, we can. Holding down Shift gives us multiple keys, so that's great. Let's make those. Put that there. Great. Okay. If you want to turn it off again, just disable. Disable. With brightness adjustment on each of those. That's nice. Or if you want the whole board, you know, a given layer to be a solid color, you can do that as well. Nice and easy. Let's switch it back to Spiral Galaxy. I still think that's my favorite. Maybe slow it down even a little more. It'd be nice if you could just type in directly what you wanted speed-wise. You're kind of stuck with just dragging it. Anyway, so that's the situation with the RGB backlighting. It's too bad that it lacks directional control for the animated effects, but more or less everything else you want is there. Let's go back one step here to configure keyboard. Oh, I didn't have to go back. I could have just gone straight to key map. So this allows you to remap any key however you like. And it's all laid out here visually. We got the alphas, the number keys, modifiers, variety of actions, F keys, numpad functions, symbols, navigation, media keys, a handful of other kind of controls. The only LED controls we have access to here are the ones that are already mapped. So sadly, no option for, cycling through LEDs on in hardware, which is too bad. I guess that means that if you do take your keyboard and plug it into a computer that doesn't have the software installed, you will not be able to change the backlighting. It's whatever you have saved to the firmware is what you'll get. And then layer switch, layer access keys. And that's it. That's all we have for the software. It's pretty bare bones. There's no macro recording here. So in some ways it feels a little stripped down. I do like how clean it is and how nicely laid out it is. Oh, it literally says here, shift click for more than one key. I didn't notice that. Your settings are automatically saved to firmware. There's no need to hit a save button. It's just automatically updated. And that's nice. But it does feel maybe a little lacking in some regards. I feel like there could be some more functionality here. That being said, there's of course other ways to execute macros if you want to do that. But it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Clean, but simple. Okay, well, I think we've really seen everything there is to see in terms of the backlight, the software, secondary functions. There's no wireless on this board or anything. and it doesn't have any other tricks up its sleeve really. So up next, it's the typing test. It's finally time for the typing test. I will warn you right now, it's going to be loud. So I will bring it down in volume so that it's not like ear splitting. But it's going to be quite a lot of clickety clack. So if you're kind of vibing right now, it might be a little too much for you, but hopefully it's not too bad. Just wanted to give you a heads up. All right, let's get to it. right, we've had a chance to now look at System76's launch in detail. We've had a chance to check out the backlighting, the configuration software, and we've had a chance to check out the typing experience, how it sounds, and I can tell you a little bit about how it feels as well. It feels great to type on. It feels very, very solid. There is no pinging, no ringing. It is a solid product, and that is conveyed through the typing feel. I don't know if there's some dampening in there or something, or if it's just the thickness of the aluminum or what exactly, but it's very satisfying typing experience. The Kailh box Jades that you just heard are an incredibly satisfying switch to use. They just, they click so good. Incredible tactile feedback, and they just make you want to click them more. You just want to keep going. But they're also very loud. Now, that is mitigated a little bit, the noise that is, by the solidity of the board, by not having a lot of chatter, rattle, pinging, anything like that, resonance. And so that dampens that aspect of the sound, but you can't escape the switches themselves. They are designed to be loud. And so for this particular configuration of the board with the Kailh box Jades, if you are working in a quiet environment, if you need to be aware of coworkers and not disturbing them, or other students, or significant others, or roommates, or whatever, you probably don't want the Kailh box Jade version, because they probably will get pissed off at you after a time. Everyone will absolutely know whenever you're typing on your keyboard. So just bear that in mind. It is also available with box Royal switches, which I have not had the chance to test out here, but they ought to be somewhat more dampened, a little more clacky, thocky, a little less clicky, snappy, if that makes sense. So you might consider that option. But the general usage experience with this keyboard, it has been great. Now, one thing, I didn't actually look at the stabilizers when we did the unboxing. Just completely skipped my mind. But I did take a peek under the few stabilized keys. There's not that many because of the unique, only 3 keycap sizes that the launch uses. Only the 2U long keys, so it's left shift, and the 2 space bars, I believe, 2 split space bar keys are actually stabilized. And they feel pretty good to use. They almost have a little bit of rebound to them. I'm not sure if System76 has put some kind of dampening material underneath the stabilizers to give them a little bit of springiness like that. But they don't have a super hard, clacky bottom out, and they feel honestly fairly smooth. Now, I think there's a bit of lubricant in there, but for whatever reason on this review model, the System76 shipped over, it almost looks like it's dried out or like coagulated a bit or something like that. It doesn't look really like fresh and super well lubed. So I'm not quite clear what's going on there, but I can say that they feel all right to use, and they don't have a whole lot of clatter or rattle to them. The fact that it is a split space bar instead of one big long one actually works in the keyboard's favor in this case, because it's almost always the spacebar stabilizers that are the weakest point of any keyboard's typing experience, and by having them as shorter, less elongate keys, System76 can kind of get away with less precise tuning of the stabs, I would say. Anyway, all that is to say, they feel pretty good and they sound pretty good, whatever they're doing there. it's more or less working. So that's good. Anyway, I think it's time that we move on to the part where I run down the pros and the cons, the stuff I really liked and didn't like so much about this keyboard. Let's get to it, starting over here with the pros, the stuff that I really liked about this keyboard. First is that it's built solidly with premium materials. That much is quite apparent from typing on it. As I was just describing, that nice thick aluminum chassis feels solid and dampened. There's really no fidgeting or rattling or resonating or pinging or anything like that. And the switches included, stock, are fairly premium as well. They're a cut above what you normally encounter, like your typical Automus or Gatorons, or even better than Cherry MX. So definitely premium use of materials throughout. The keycaps, nice, thick, die-sub PBT. I can't complain about any of the material choices in this keyboard. The second thing that I like is the split space bar. Now this might take a bit of getting used to for some people, but let me tell you, once you do, it's fantastic to have easy access to a secondary function layer underneath your thumbs. And ultimately, I think that it makes for a more configurable and flexible keyboard, and I think it's the right choice for what System76 is going for with the launch. On the same note of configurability, I'm really glad to see that this board features hot swap sockets. I initially thought that maybe it didn't, because I didn't remember seeing it in the promotional materials for the board. It wasn't sort of a marquee advertising point, which kind of confused me, since this ostensibly is supposed to be a very configurable board. So really glad to see those sockets, especially in light of the fact that the board only ships stock with 2 switch options, one very clicky, one very tactile, and no linear options at all. So for that configuration ability, it's important to have those hot swap sockets in there. We'll talk more about that once we get to the cons section though. Continuing on with the theme of customizability, it's nice to see the inclusion of the extra keycaps that System76 provides, and I think at least some people will really like their dedication to having only 3 sizes of keycaps. Now, this is a double-edged sword, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but for some people who just want to buy their keyboard and have everything that they need to configure it included in the package, I think that design philosophy really works here. And the inclusion of a plethora of extra keycaps to allow for that configurability is definitely a plus. I'm also happy to say that the RGB backlighting implementation is especially good with the System76 launch. The LEDs are bright, they are vibrant, saturated, and the gradients are nice and smooth, and there's even a few effects on the board that I have not seen before on any other keyboard, so that's kind of cool. I think the RGB looks really good, even though the included keycaps are not shine through. I think the sort of diffuse look that you get with the RGB as implemented is really appealing. And I'm also really jazzed about how many high-speed USB ports are on this keyboard. There's no fewer than 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2, that's 10 gigabit per second USB ports. I've never seen that before on a keyboard. I wish more keyboards had more USB ports on them, especially high-speed ports. It's just such an easily accessible place to plug stuff in without having to go to your PC tower or whatever. So props to System76 for all those USB ports. The last couple pros that I have to talk about here are related to the open source nature of what System76 is presenting here. First of all, the board makes use of open source QMK based configuration software or firmware, and that's great to see. The particular app that System76 has created here is nice and clean. It's quite intuitive. I will say it's a bit bare bones, but it does basically what it needs to do, and it seems to do it quite well. And finally, I'm really I want to commend System76 for their commitment to open sourcing all the design files for this keyboard, the PCB, the case. I think that's a really cool approach that I particularly appreciate. If I had access to a 3D printer or something, it might be fun to try 3D printing a slightly modified case for this thing. Presumably, you could also take the CAD files or the PCB design files and modify them yourself if you wanted to. Add different features or change the layout or what have you. Print your own PCB, do your own thing with it. That would be kind of cool. Now, those printing services are not offered by System76, but it's neat that they offer the design files. So if you wanted to go and do your own thing, print your own stuff with third-party companies, you could do so. So props to System76 for their open source designs. Over here, on the cons side of things, there are a handful of things that I am not so crazy about with this board, all of which I think I've alluded to at different points throughout the review. The first among them is the fact that System76 will only sell you this keyboard with two different switch options. One very clicky switch with the Kailh box Jades, or one very tactile switch with the box Royals. Sorry, linear fans, you're straight out of luck. Now, this is somewhat mitigated by the fact that this is a hot swap board, so you can easily pop the switches out and put your own in. But still, why limit consumers, purchasers of your board to those two fairly niche kind of switch options? Why not offer a whole bunch of different options, or alternatively sell a bare bones version of the board? I do not believe System76 offers a bare bones version of the Launch, so it just seems odd to force people into one of those two choices, especially considering that this keyboard, one of its kind of pillars, core tenets, is configurability and customizability. On a similar point, the version that I got sent here to test with the Kailh box THICC click Jades, man, those clicks are very thick indeed, and it is very loud. That's not really the fault of the board design itself. It is a very solid, well-dampened board. It's just the nature of the switches, but I guess it's less of a con and more of a personal preference. But I did want to put it here just to let you know that if you are looking at one of those two switch options on System76's website, and you need something that's not outrageously loud, your only choice then is the box Royals, because the Jades are exceptionally loud, and I would not be able to get away with using this as my daily driver. In fact, I didn't use it as my daily driver for most of my time reviewing it. I would bring it out every now and again, to get a feel for it and remind myself how it feels and operates. But I personally just found it too much most days to use it all day long. It is very loud. Another potential con I want to bring up here is the only 3 keycap sizes philosophy. While I think it is pretty cool, and I think it's going to appeal to a certain kind of user, I think it is very much a double-edged blade. It's cool that it allows you to swap out the keycaps with the included extras, and really configure that split space bar and stuff with different caps. But it basically precludes the use of third-party keycap sets because most sets are not going to have coverage for the non-standard layout and the non-standard keycap sizes. You could probably cobble something together, especially with a larger set, but it's not going to look quite right. And it might be difficult with sets that have less comprehensive coverage. So I really do think that System76 has made an interesting trade-off here for configurability by enhancing it in some ways and restricting it in certain others when it comes to third-party keycap sets. And I think that that's not going to sit well with some people who want to be able to slap on their GMK set or their SA set or whatever that they want to put on. And finally, it's pretty hard to escape the fact that this keyboard is fairly expensive. At $285 US, you are up against some very stiff competition. It has premium materials, interesting keycaps, a reasonable set of features, but pretty much anything else you find at this price point is going to have all that, possibly more, and it might do some of it better as well. So there's going to be pros and cons, of course, to any keyboard, but I think that this is very much the upper end of what System76 can reasonably charge for what they're offering here. And I think that that high price is going to give a lot of potential buyers of this board reason to pause and seriously consider other options. So what then is my final verdict on the System76 Launch keyboard? Well, this keyboard is advertised as being ergonomic, as being configurable, and as being efficient. And I would say that generally speaking, System76 does succeed on all of those fronts. The Launch is solidly built and it feels and sounds great to type on with its thick aluminum chassis, its thick PBT keycaps, and its premium switches, and the 75% layout and the interesting commitment to having only 3 keycap sizes means that it is very efficient with lots of configurability options at your fingertips. It is a very space efficient and ergonomic layout. That said, the only 3 keycap sizes philosophy is definitely a double-edged blade, as it can potentially severely limit compatibility with third-party keycap sets, and some users are going to find that unacceptable. I also find it kind of strange that System76 only offers 2 switch options stock for this keyboard. It seems to be somewhat antithetical to their highly configurable ethos that they seem to have with this board, and I would really like to see them offer like at least a 3rd option, like a linear option, ideally more, or a bare bones version of this board. I think a bare bones version of this board would actually be really, really cool. A bare bones option would also probably come in a bit cheaper, which would probably be pretty appealing to some people as a less pricey point of entry, because let's talk about price for a minute here. This is not a cheap keyboard. It comes in a little under $300 US, 285. That's a lot of money for most people to spend on a keyboard. Even for enthusiasts, that's solidly into the enthusiast mid-range, and there are so many awesome options out there these days. Very exciting, stylish, feature-rich, highly configurable options with premium materials and the whole shebang around that price point. And I really do think that the price point is going to cause a lot of potential buyers to raise an eyebrow and to really seriously evaluate what they're getting for that price and what they could potentially get for that money elsewhere as well. However, if you are the kind of person who is really impressed or appreciates System76's unique commitment to open sourcing their designs, for example, or who really appreciates their hand-built in Colorado sort of advertising angle, or if you're just a big keyboard nerd who really likes kind of slightly offbeat but interesting, well put together mechanical keyboards, then I do not think that you're going to be disappointed with System76's launch. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of another relaxing review. A special thanks to System76 for sending over the launch keyboard that we took a look at here today. I appreciate their patience with me getting this review out and their help facilitating this review. And of course, special thanks to this video's sponsor, Into the AM. They of the awesome graphic tees, as well as other rad everyday apparel like their hoodies, which you guys will hopefully get a look at in a future video here in not too long. If you're interested in picking up some awesome tees or other cool pieces of clothing, please check out the link down below in the video description and at the top of the comments and save yourself 10% off your purchase while supporting the channel at the same time. It means a lot to me, and I hope that you enjoy whatever you pick up from them. It's all good stuff. It all looks and feels great. So please go check out Into the AM with those links down below. And of course, a huge, huge thank you to each and every one of you for watching. I appreciate you so much. I hope you found this video informative, and as always, I hope you found it relaxing. And I look very forward to having you back here next time for another episode of Relaxing Reviews. Bye for now, my friends.